In a battle for Pennsylvania supremacy, the Steelers head to Lincoln Financial Field to take on the Eagles, and there are some really interesting matchups in this game. For starters, the Steelers have the number one pressure unit in the NFL, which doesn't really come as a surprise. You have TJ Watt as the lead guy, and then you have lots of supporting cast as well. But in contrast, the Eagles have a good pass blocking unit as well. It's just not up to the same caliber that the Steelers' defense is. And that's going to be advantageous for the Steelers because they can get pressure with just four guys. And yes, the Eagles will be able to block it pretty effectively, but they're not going to be able to shut it down like they usually are. Coinciding with that is that the Steelers have an elite interior rusher in Keanu Benton against Landon Dickerson, who isn't bad by any stretch, but he's not elite as a pass protector. So that's a bit of an advantage for the Steelers' pass rush again. And lastly, for their pass rush, they have the gem Cam Hayward, who might just be the best interior player in the league this season if it's not Sexy Dexy. So he's going to be going against what is kind of a middling pass protecting Cam Jurgens and Mekhi Becton. Again, they're not bad by any stretch, but they are not the caliber that Hayward is. Moving to something that isn't the defensive line now, the Steelers have an advantage in that they only have to watch A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, and the run game of the Eagles, which is Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley. It's not just Barkley. Hurts can run the ball too, obviously. So there's definitely a lot to watch, but there's not a third wide receiver to watch, which is a big help because the Steelers don't have the greatest coverage unit. So if they have to cover everybody one on one, they're not going to be able to do that, but they're not going to have to do a one on one coverage as much. They can kind of bracket Smith and Brown. And another advantage they have, this one is on offense, and this is their last advantage as well, is that they have good tight ends versus a mid in coverage, Nakobe Dean. And I want to stress this is in coverage because Dean is a very good player. He's just not amazing in coverage. And to cover Fryermuth and Darnell Washington, there's going to be a kind of fall off if you're not very good. I know they don't have the same name recognition as some of the higher end tight ends, but they are amongst the absolute best for a two tight end set. Shifting to the Eagles now, they have the advantage of the Steelers having a lacking pass protection versus the elite pass rush of the Eagles. This is a bigger discrepancy than even the Steelers have versus the Eagles because the Eagles have a good pass protecting line and the Steelers have an elite pass rush. And here, the Steelers don't have a very good pass protecting line. And the Eagles still do have an elite pass rush. So it's going to be great on not so good, and that's pretty problematic. The advantage they have in addition to that is though the tight ends are good for the Steelers, tight ends might just be the only threat that the Steelers have because George Pickens is seeming to be out. He wasn't seen practicing Wednesday or Thursday, which is not a great look for the prospects of him playing. And he's the best offensive weapon by far for the Steelers. Next, sticking with the defense, is Cooper DeJean is a star, and he is much better than Calvin Austin, who is poor in his role. He might be entrusted with being a number one wide receiver, which just is not what he should be. He should be a number three, in which case he would be a good number three, but he's going to be a very poor number one or a not so good number two. Again, with the defensive backs for Philly, they have good Quinyon Mitchell. He's very good, I would say, especially for a rookie, against below average Van Jefferson. So that's pretty wide of a gap in talent as well. It's not as big as DeJean versus Austin, but it's pretty wide. What is also wide is the gap between Jalen Carter, who is a gem pass rusher, against a meh protecting interior offensive line. It's not bad for the Steelers. I would say it's better than their right tackle situation for sure, which will be discussed later, but it's not a strength either. And with it not being a strength, that also means that the great pressure getter in Milton Williams will be able to get in as well versus this middling interior offensive line. So the Eagles are going to be able to get pass rush in a bevy of ways, especially too because I didn't even finish with that. They have solid Nolan Smith versus an awful Broderick Jones. Jones is really struggling as a pass protector this year, and Smith is not the guy to be tested against because he's very nice. So that's going to be an issue more than likely for the Steelers. You're going to be getting pressure up the middle and from the right side of the quarterback as well. That's not great. The Eagles, offensively, though they do have limited receiving options, they have very good receivers in the ones they do because A.J. Brown is a stud, and he's going to be going against a lacking Joey Porter Jr., who isn't the worst, but he holds a fair amount. He gets pass interference a good deal. He doesn't have the greatest coverage when he's playing legally, so he's not the greatest matchup for sure. And what will also be an advantageous matchup for the Eagles is Devonta Smith against Beanie Bishop, who is a poor nickelback, I would say, and Devonta Smith is a quality slot option. If Smith is on the outside, that's also going to be advantageous for the Eagles because he's going to be going against Dante Jackson, who is also lacking. So no matter where they place him, he's going to be in a good matchup. The final advantage for the Eagles is that they're at home field, or they have home field advantage, rather. So that's a pretty nice thing to have. It can break up ties for sure, and it could just help you overall with the defense and not having to deal with that as an offense. So you might be able to tell where I'm leaning with this game just by the number of advantages I've cited. And yes, you're correct. I do think the Eagles are going to win this game. I could see them covering, I believe it's 5.5 now, but I wouldn't bet on that. I far more see them winning straight up than I do by that large of a number. It's obviously not a touchdown, but this is going to be a low scoring game, probably, as both teams don't have the greatest offenses, but they do have very good defenses. So 5.5 means more here than it does in other matchups. So yeah, I think the Eagles are going to win. I'm pretty confident in that, but I'm not sure about them winning by the spread. Those are my thoughts. Be sure to let me know what yours are in the comment section, and also be sure to like and subscribe for more NFL content.